Savor moments like this if you're an Arsenal fan. I'm being serious. Take a moment, just breathe it in. Just, right? A late win against Manchester United, the reverse fixture earlier on in the season, is the one game that you've lost all season. You're now on 50 points, 19 games in, which, if you extrapolate it out, will get you on to be a 100-point season and will put you streets ahead of all the other sides in the Premier League. Now, there are a lot of headlines in this game, and I want to cover them, I want to savor them with you, and I want to make sure that we go through everything that is current to Arsenal at the moment. So let's just start with the moments to savor in the game. Nketiah's first goal, a great header, a great move from Arsenal, moving Manchester United around. Manchester United were very comfortable sitting deep in this game. It wasn't always that Arsenal were pressed. In fact, Arsenal were the team doing the pressing early on. But Manchester United looked very comfortable. That's often where a team that's doing the pressing can start to get a bit frustrated, can start to panic a little bit. Hold on a minute, this tactic isn't working. They allowed Manchester United to sit deep, and even when Manchester United went 1-0 up, through a fantastic goal from Marcus Rashford, you just saw Arteta on the sideline, just keep your heads. And even they said it, I think, on the commentary on Sky. It was just, sometimes you will go down early to a goal like that. And it was a fantastic moment for Rashford. But even better moments were to come from Saka. Saka scored what I can only really call an Anthony goal. Weirdly, you would expect that Manchester United would have expected a goal like that, or at least been trained against goals like that. But it's quite clear that Arsenal were briefed that when you get on certain players in this game, exploit them. And you know that Christian Eriksen isn't going to be the fastest player on the pitch. You know that there are going to be a number of players who, in this particular instance, are not Casemiro. Manchester United lacked him, although they lacked him earlier on in the season when Manchester United also beat Arsenal as well. In fact, he came on as a late substitute, and you got to say they needed him in this game. That silly yellow card that he got now, looking like it's blown up in Manchester United's face. Not that Manchester United played particularly badly in this game, but they were not as decisive, and they were under the cosh for quite a while from Arsenal. In fact, to the degree where actually most of the second half, Arsenal looked like the side that were in control of the game. For long periods this match, Arsenal were the aggressors. Arsenal were the team controlling it. Manchester United obviously inviting them on, so let's give them a little bit of credit for being that team that sat deep. But they were basically playing what looked like a 4-5-1 or even a 4-6 in their own box. And it was only inviting Arsenal pressure on. They didn't know what to do with the movement. Despite how compact they were, Arsenal was still finding acres of space. With Martinelli out on the left wing, Saka had so much space to step into, and Nketiah, well, ultimately he was just standing unmarked. And Manchester United going much deeper, which is obviously what they didn't do earlier on, but they did do earlier on in the season, but didn't get this pressured, will have been a little bit frustrating for someone like Erik ten Hag. And in fact, again, it's the pulling from one side to another that Arsenal do. The switch the ball, get the ball over to the left-hand side, get the ball in. What do you see? And who is it that provides most of that? Zinchenko. Zinchenko is another player just to savour for you Arsenal fans. There is so much play that goes through him. It's also brilliant to watch because he is playing left-back in this game, but he's playing more like a left winger, which allows Arsenal and Martinelli to play much more central attacking roles, right? Now, I love that in the first place, but what it does is it basically overloads Manchester United in exactly the positions they don't want to be overloaded. They don't want to be overloaded on Aaron Wan-Bissaka. They also don't want to be overloaded on either side of the defence just because they know that Arsenal are good at putting in crosses. But at the same time, they also didn't clock that if they went that deep, then there was no worry for anyone to just be standing in basically open space and could just turn the ball in so easily. Eddie Nketiah did exactly what you would want Eddie Nketiah to do. He found space, he exploited it, and late on, he got this incredible win. And weirdly, the first thought for Manchester United was offside, which makes you think, when they all got pulled out of position like that, should they not have been adapting to the space? And this is so different to what happened to Arsenal earlier on in the season. They were cutthroat, but they weren't controlling. They weren't strangling like they are now. And you can tell the difference. Here's the two differences between Arsenal and the previous seasons. Arsenal in the previous seasons would have panicked in this situation. They would have said to themselves, you know what, actually, I don't know if we can win this one. Manchester United have been good in this game. The calmness, the decisive nature of what they were doing, the fact that they didn't panic at any point played a huge part in this game. The confidence that must take, and I mean like the supreme confidence in their ability and skill to score a goal in the game against a side that are famously good defensively this season, is what Arsenal is now banking on every game, right? They are the side who will score. Manchester United have had it in previous seasons, way ago. Before that, you could have said the Arsenal team was similar. You could have said that the Man City side, then Liverpool. Arsenal is now their turn to be the ones who turn the key, the ones who rank up the pressure bit by bit. And Arsenal, well, the fans won't be used to that at this point, but they will be getting used to it by now. It will also be the fact that there are other teams in the Premier League who rotate fairly regularly, but Arsenal, well, this is a very consistent starting 11 for them, to the fact that I think they've played it 4 games in a row now. They've also got, well, they don't lack good subs. If you look at their subs bench, they've got Turner, decent substitute goalkeeper, Tierney, Holding, Smith Rowe, Vieira, Lokonga, Trossard, Marquinhos. If you wanted to make 4 out of 5 subs there, you probably could and probably keep it fairly regular. But there's some reason that, well, yeah, I mean, Arteta obviously trusts this 11, but at the same time, you need more depth in that squad. And I think that was the criticism of them at the start of the season, right? The criticism was, you guys need to improve in terms of squad depth. Because some people underestimated Bukayo Saka, some people underestimated, say, Eddie Nketiah, someone like that. And I think that, you know, when you started off the season and you thought, okay, who's the backup striker here? And it was Eddie Nketiah who just signed a new contract. You got you worried a little bit for the squad depth, because not so much that you didn't know what he was capable of, but more that you didn't know what he was capable of. And people, when they don't know about a player, they just go, well, he can't be good then. And I kind of find it weird now, because we're looking at Eddie Nketiah. He's probably one of the more informed strikers in the Premier League. He is actually the striker for the best team in the Premier League. So people underestimated him, and I think they did that at their peril. Then you've also got the fact they're making 2 new signings. One of the new signings is in defence, where you saw that was pretty much the only meaningful sub they made in the game. Ben White came on the field. Ben White came off the field. Tomiyasu came on, put in some fairly meaningless crosses for quite some time, but you can see that they want those second balls. You can see that they want Manchester United to head it away, and then they'll get it in central areas. Weirdly, like when Arsenal hang up crosses, you can tell when the quality of the cross is there and the players are meaningfully getting up for it, and you can tell when they're going for the second balls. It's a strange thing that you'd imagine if another manager works out, they could probably try to exploit. Along with that, you can also obviously say that the Saka situation, you can say that how good Odegaard I thought was in this game as well. He was roaming all over the place, and it allowed someone like Thomas Partey to roam around him. Xhaka had a lot more space in the opposite side of the field, who was hooking up with Zinchenko. So it's really more like a midfield 4 when Arsenal are in control. And then you just got to love what Zinchenko does on the other side. You basically got 2 playmakers, 2 enablers. The enablers being Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka, and the 2 playmakers just... Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean? Turn up the bass a little. Like, you know, Zinchenko over here, Odegaard over here, and Odegaard just sort of moves around. You could tell. It was confusing Manchester United. They didn't have someone like Casemiro in there to right the midfield. So Arsenal exploited it. And unlike earlier in the season, my friends, they got their reward for it. Arsenal, I think the headline was that Arsenal played very well, but got exploited on slightly naive decisions earlier on in the season. And a few people were critical of someone like Mikel Arteta. They were saying, oh, this is where he falls down this season. Are these the concerns? They were highlighting red flags all over the place. But actually, if you look at it, the marathon continued. And this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Let me just scroll over a little bit here. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint, which is why they've signed Kivior from Spezia, 20 million, and they've signed Trossard from Brighton, who obviously came on and, you know, basically relieved some of the pressure. The thing with Trossard that you've got to remember is Trossard has been playing within a side where they have relied on him a lot more than Arsenal will. But this is validation for him. This move is a move to a potential Premier League champion, and at least a Premier League challenger, right? So when Trossard comes, there is weirdly very low expectations for him, because he's coming into a side where they're already well equipped in those areas, but they need more depth, rather than him coming in and needing to hit the ground running. You know, touch wood, obviously all the players stay fit. But then there is also space for him to grow into, there's space for him to challenge for a starting 11 berth, but it's also his motivation to be one of those guys who can win and be a winner as part of a squad. Of course, he's got the quality. He scored a hat-trick earlier on this season against Liverpool at Anfield. Don't forget that. But Bring him into the side is smart at this point in the season. Brings depth. It's way cheaper than it would have been to get, say, Mykhailo Mudryk in. And even though Mudryk looks absolutely fantastic, you've got to say Trossard is also a very... Yeah, I do actually think it's smart business from Arsenal. I know that a few people will underestimate Trossard, but you're the fool for that. Longevity-wise, I still worry. Weirdly, it feels like sort of mid-February at this point, but we are only halfway through the season. Arsenal need depth. And I was looking at the bench. I know there are strong players in there, but if you then bring those players in because if other players are injured, you are going to be rotating even less than you would be already as Mikel Arteta. This was a big game, though, and I get it. Like, you need to start your best starting 11, and you're on 50 points at this point in the season, but you don't want to see a team drop away. And I know that Man City have played one more game than Arsenal, but they are still only 5 points behind, and a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. I say that. Their next three games are very formative. You're playing an Everton side that are desperate, then you play a Brentford team that have got a penchant for beating top sides, and then you play Man City again. If you beat Man City in that game, I think that is the Premier League title. I'm just saying. So there were some really impressive performances, not least, I think, at the back, by the way. I get it that, obviously Ben White, I think Ben White looked like he completely switched off at one point, but it was great to see Tomiyasu come on and Manchester United basically get shut down in the second half. Very little going forward from them. I actually thought Arsenal dealt with them quite well and made some adjustments in good areas. It was probably one of the weaker games in terms of being the boss of the back line for either Gabriel or Saliba this season. Conceding two, they'll be disappointed, especially considering they've only conceded 16 so far this season. That's an eighth of the goals they've conceded this season in one game. But, and by the way, that compares very favourably to any other team in the top, apart from Newcastle United. Newcastle are in the top half. Newcastle are the best defensive team in the league. They just don't have the goal scoring at the other end. Newcastle might be on for a title. They're not. They're at 11 points off the top at this point. They've played one more game. Manchester United, this was their chance to get within touching distance of Man City. They're now 6 points behind. Anyway, next three games, Arsenal, Everton, Brentford, Manchester City at home. These are key games for them now. What are they stepping into? What does it mean for the title race? I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to know what you thought of overall in this game. I thought Arsenal were dominant for pretty much all of the second half. And even when Manchester United did counter-attack, I felt Arsenal dealt with it very well. They were cynical in the right way. One thing I'm going to flag, and none of these things are criticism. These are just observations of weaknesses within sides. I do think Mikel Arteta is getting a bit of a reputation which maybe isn't actually merited. I think a lot of managers are very aggressive. I just think every now and again, people choose to focus on that aggression. There was a meeting of the referees at St. George's Park a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about touchline conduct. He got a yellow card in this game. I think managers are, first of all, they're very aware of the performativity of being a manager, right? And Mikel Arteta will be very aware of that. He's been under someone like Pep Guardiola. He's been managed by people like Arsene Wenger himself, and he's also just observed a lot of other great managers and players, and that he knows that you need to act out sometimes. He knows that sometimes when your team are doing badly, you need to emphasize that on the touchline. So I'm not all that worried about like people who say, oh, managers are heroes, people look up to them, all that. Yeah, I get it. But there is an element of performativity of this, and people get performances out of their teams in different methods. They also sometimes divert attention away from the players on the pitch to themselves. He took a yellow card for that, and the team will have seen that. The team will understand that, all right? These are all performative things that the managers do. I think it's worth just noting that. Anyway, I'd be interested to know what you guys think of the game. I'd be interested to know what you think. Well, I will be doing a Manchester United video later in the week, obviously. Arsenal now have some big games coming up. And yeah, in fact, they've got some huge games coming up. February 15th, midway through February, the day after Valentine's Day. Beautiful. That's a midweek as well. Ooh. Isn't it? Is that Wednesday? Ooh. Gotta love that. Anyway, nice to chat to you guys. Let's go celebrate the Arsenal win. If you're an Arsenal fan, for everyone else in the Premier League, just look up to them. They're absolutely fantastic. And I think these guys more than deserve the position they're in at this point this season. Huge doubt around them at the start of the season. Lots of people have changed their tune. Don't forget the people have changed their tune. And we'll go from there. Good day. Much love. See you in a bit. Bye.